Hello, everybody. This is Chang Seob. Today, we're going to discuss about the introduction to non-life P&C actuarial science. The first course is going to be about risk management. Let me start that risk management session today. The first, we're going to discuss about what is the risk, like definition of a risk. The risk, when you say the risk, this is the like status which is exposed to the possible loss. And then there are some types of risk depending on how you define. The first definition is like a statistical risk versus financial risk. When you say statistical risk, this is like fluctuating around mean value. It's purely statistics based. And the next one is the financial risk, which is more close to actuarial science. And fluctuation is around where the loss is occurring. It says that the only risk matters when there is loss. If there is any profit there, then we don't say there is any risk at all. So that's the difference between the statistical risk versus financial risk. The next is how we measure the risk amount. The statistical measure in this case is simple, just variance. You calculate variance, that's kind of the risk amount. But in financial risk, because you only care about the loss side, there are two definitions. One is called VAR, value at risk, and the other one is like a tail value at risk. I will see the difference in next graph. Here I draw a graph. It is based on like a normal distribution. There's the break-even point, and then we have the risk amount with VAR and risk amount with TVAR. The difference between the risk VAR versus TVAR is the TVAR calculates that when the probability is more than a certain point, it just go to the mean value. You see this, if there's a probability we are thinking about 95%, then 5% is right-hand side. And then we found the points where there's 2.5% probability of each. So typically, you will get more risk amounts when you use the term TVAR. This is a little difficult concepts to understand for those who is not familiar with actuarial. Okay, next we define definition of another on the risk side is they call objective risk versus subjective risk. Objective risk is like a natural risk, like earthquake or flipping coins, show up head or tail. The subjective risk is estimating that objective risk. The example is going to be like you estimate the frequency of earthquake. That's subjective risk. And the next, we also define like a pure risk versus a speculative risk. Pure risk, there exists only one possible loss. But speculative risk, the possibility of loss and profit, like gambling. And then we discuss. We're going to discuss about the purpose or objective of risk management. The first above all is to survive when a loss occurs. The second is like getting a good night's sleep, to get a little comfort. The third one is to obtain more profits through the saving risk management cost. You are actively do risk management, so you save risk management cost, and then you get more profit. The fourth one is going to be to prevent from any interruption of company management or the continuation of your operations. The fifth one is going to be to grow continually. So that's kind of the most companies are looking for, is you want to grow continually without any interruptions. There are two types of risk loss when you say about the loss. The first one is like first party loss. In first party loss is this kind of loss you yourself occurred. The first one is the tangible loss, which is you can see from your outside, like property, accidental injury or death. Intangible loss, you incur loss, but you cannot see it. But it's like a monetary values, like unemployment. This is also loss, but you cannot see it. Or decrease of income. This is like a monetary loss you experience. And then also other side is like an increase of expense to continually operate your company. Sometimes because of this risk, you have to increase your expenses. The third party losses you call is liability. The loss occurred due to your negligence and like you have to pay to the third party. So this is like a financial compensations to the third party you injured. Property damage liability versus personal injury liability. It's just liability. There are two types of liability. One is property damages, and the other one is personal injuries. Personal injuries like third parties bodily injuries, example of the third party personal injuries. The next we will discuss about like 5 steps for risk management process. The first one is you have to find items which is exposed to the risk. Second, then you have to measure the size of risk, how big the risk is going to be. The third is like selecting best management method to manage the risk. The fourth one is like implementing a selected risk management method. So you take care of those risks based on the your selected risk management method. The fifth one is monitoring the selected risk management, whether it works as planned. So this is like afterwards you go over, see what's wrong or what's right about your risk management method. Again, there's like the risk management method. The first one is risk control. Is like you're avoiding risk exposures, and then to preventing the loss and decreasing the loss or separating the risk items. We're going to discuss a little further later. The second item is going to be financing the risk. The first one is you retaining the risk. Second one is contractual risk transfer to non-insurer, keeping legal risk yourself. The third one, of course, it's this kind of final one is going to be the most also common one is insurance. You buy insurance, paying premium, and then taking care of your risk. Okay, here risk control, avoiding the risk exposures. You don't do anything which there's possibility of any if there is any possibility of loss, or you throw away such assets which can make some possible risk. Also, if the expected loss is huge, you do not do any production. Example is manufacturing clothes for children. It's so risky. You don't do any manufacturing for those clothes. Second is loss preventions. You reduce any loss probability or loss frequencies. For example, it's going to be like a fire prevention activities. You do not smoking to prevent from the fire starts. The third one is loss reductions. And loss occurred by you want to reduce the size of loss or the severity of loss. There's two types. One is like a prevention before. You install firewall, then you prevent further fire interruptions. The second one is the prevention after. If you install a sprinkler system, you reduce the fire after the fire occurred. Sprinkler system do not prevent the fire occurring, but it does reduce the fire damages. Then the next, fourth one is separation of exposures. You reduce the size of single loss by separation. You split the exposure into small group. For example, it's like a taxi garage. You make several taxi garage, like A garage, B garage, and C garage. Even if there's fire occurred in A garage, B garage and C garage is okay, so you can still operate your taxi business. Second one is combinations. Increase the number of exposures. If you have additional taxis in the garage, if there is any malfunctioning of a few cars, you still have enough taxis you can operate. Then the next one is like a contractual transfer to non-insurance entity. For example, the lease contract or subcontract. By contract wording, you transfer the non-insurance entity your risk, but it's called a vicarious liability. If the first party do not have insurance, eventual responsibility goes to the building owner for those risk contract cases. Okay, now risk financing. This financing is like all methods to fund for the recovery from the loss. The first one is risk retaining, self-insurance. Actually, this is not financing. You retain risk yourself. There are two types, like passive type, unrecognized or forgotten. So this is you retaining loss risk involuntarily. The active type is the preferred to retain the risk after detailed evaluations. For these active types of risk retaining, you save your expenses by retaining small risks you can endure. There's a called total retaining. This happens when you are unable to insure. The example was a nuclear related risk. And then there's a partial retaining. This is the most typical way of retaining the risk. You retain lower layer, and then the higher layer you buy insurance. So you save your expenses because you're not paying the premium for those lower layers. Example is like retaining up to $10,000 per claim. This example is pooling. Is a kind of special types in risk retaining. Many people get together to take risk together. So you came together to share risk exposure, retaining some of own risk and others. By doing this, you save premium expense. And if you are actively or you are willing to do this, you could save some additional money to increase your profits. It happens in a lot in US, not in Korea. I haven't seen a few cases in Korea, but this is more common activities in US or in advanced countries. Okay, there's a risk management, a contractual transferring to non-insurance entity. Example was like a hold harmless agreement. And if you do consulting to some company, you write this kind of agreement that if you did some wrongdoing, the other party cannot sue because of that. So it's just kind of you avoid any risk, possible risk. Okay, the third one is the last one is transferring to the insurer. After paying some premium, you transfer financial responsibility to insurer. The insurers protected from the financial loss and loss of course. An insurer took over financial responsibility of many people and combination types of risk controls. The insurance company combine all those risks and then increase number of exposures. Then insurance company can increase predictabilities, then decrease the significant financial problems, and to mitigate the insuring. So in some cases, the primary or direct insurer not big enough to take over all those risks. To those cases, they buy reinsurance from the reinsurer. The ideal exposure, which is insurable, and there's an insurable risk and a non-insurable risk. These ideal cases are just insurable first, that transport exposure is related to a pure risk, like a speculative risk. It cannot be insured. And then second, the number of independent similar exposures are plenty. Anti-example is like unemployment. This is uninsurable because if there's bad economic conditions, many people are unemployed, and there are lots of claims, and insurance company can bankrupt. So unemployment is kind of this uninsurable risk, we say. The third, time, location, cause, and amount of loss is exact and deterministic. This has to be exactly defined to be insurable risk. And then the loss occurred during a reasonable period, and it is possible to estimate expected loss. If it's not, it's not possible to estimate the expected loss, which is important to set up the premium. The anti-example is going to be asbestosis claim. In this case, asbestos claims case, it occurs a very long time to be a claim. So it's just kind of things that are pretty tough to insure. Many US companies involuntarily insure these asbestos claims, even though they don't want to insure those. It happens because of the broad wording of the insurance policy wording. Okay. And next is loss occurred accidentally from the point of insured. It has to be like a randomly occurred. If it's not insured. For example, if arson by insured is not covered because by covered if it is occurred by others. If arson occurred by insured, it's just like you make fires yourself to set fire yourself to get insurance award from the insurance company. This happens once in a while in even US that insured set fire their house or their building if it is old and that their business is not good to get insurance from the insurance company. So the loss adjuster has to find out that whether that fire is not arson fire or not. Okay, this is all about risk management. And the next session is going to be pricing. Okay, bye-bye.